Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce an extraordinary guest, Amy Lenius. Amy is a dynamic speaker, coach, and the director of group coaching at Next Level University, where she helps people, primarily women, refine success in a way that feels truly aligned. With nearly a decade of experience of speaking on stages dedicated to health, healing, and personal development, and having been featured on over 200 podcasts. Amy brings an incredible wealth of knowledge and lived experience to our conversation today. Amy's coaching is grounded in a whole person approach, addressing mindset, health, relationships, purpose, and identity. Having rebuilt her own health, identity, and self-worth after battling chronic illnesses, she understands firsthand that real growth isn't always easy. It's about digging deep, getting honest, and consistently choosing yourself. Today, Amy will share her insights on self-worth, emotional resilience, and creating sustainable habits that empower men and women, especially over 40, to recover after life's challenges like divorce and find renewed purpose. Let's dive in and learn how to stop performing and start truly aligning with what matters most. Welcome to the show, Amy. I appreciate having you, rather. Tell us a bit about yourself. I got some questions for you.
Oh, I'm so excited, David. Thank you so much for having me. I love the premise of your show and the through line of your show and the work that you're doing in the world. I deeply believe that it is needed. It is so valuable. As someone who partners with very heart-driven, intelligent, integrous men, I think that is such a gift to the world, and I think it is so needed. And I see the impact that these kinds of men have on the world, like yourself, like Kevin and Ellen, who I partner with at Next Level University. Oh, and like I said, it's just so needed. So I deeply respect everything you're doing, and I'm so excited for our conversation.
How do you define self-worth? That was one of the pillars you talked about, or I saw you talked about. How do you define self-worth, and why is this such a foundational pillar in personal growth?
So from the lens of everything that you're bringing to the world, for men and people in general, understanding yourself at a deep level and continuing to go deeper is such a superpower. Knowing why you do the things you do, why you don't do the things you do, why you say, think, do, feel, believe, all of the things that you say and don't say, do and don't do, it really matters. And when you're trying to build relationships with others, or if you're trying to have success in the world monetarily, or whatever your version of success means, understanding yourself and how you interact in those arenas is so important. And self-worth is just a piece of that. So self-worth is an internal game. It's an internal dialogue. It's how you feel about yourself, how you interact with the world based on what you feel you're worthy of. And it's this opposing but symbiotic relationship with self-belief. So self-belief is you believing you can create an external result. It's all external results driven. It's with enough time and effort, I can create this result. If I don't know how to do it, I can learn and then I can implement. It's your level of belief in that capability. Self-worth is the internal game. It's, do I believe I'm worthy of that result? Am I worthy of the actions it's going to take? Am I worthy of the standards it's going to hold? I need to hold while I build this thing. And so self-worth, is just that internal game of, do you keep the promises you make to yourself? What is your relationship with boundaries? Social courage. Are you able to be your authentic self or even know who that is? Do you invest in yourself? And even things like, what is your relationship with comparison? Is it to a detriment, or is it something really healthy that inspires you? These are all little pieces of self-worth.
What simple practical steps can a man take to rebuild their self-worth after experiencing something like a life-altering thing as a divorce?
Yeah, if you have low self-worth, then it is something that will serve you to build. There's always the opposing where you have inflated, inauthentic self-worth as well. And I've seen men on both spectrums. Inflated self-worth is, I actually believe I am the best. I actually believe that I don't need to take others' opinions. I don't need to have other options because my options are the only options and I'm the best. It's almost like this villain archetype that comes in where they believe they have high self-worth and that it is everyone else's fault versus any fault of their own. But they actually have low self-belief. They deeply, do not believe in their ability to change their life, to have different results, to be growth oriented. They typically have a very fixed mindset. Whereas some people come in with very low self-worth and high self-belief. That's the hero archetype. It's I'm going to do great things, but I'm always going to do it at a detriment to myself. I'm going to help others at a detriment to myself. I'm going to be the ultimate martyr. Or there's the victim that has low of both. Do you have low self-belief? Do you have really low self-worth? Do you believe that you don't have any options because you yourself are not capable and that your opinions don't even matter? So it depends what category you fall into. This is actually one of the most challenging things about being a speaker and a podcaster is it's more, in my opinion, simple to speak to someone one-on-one because I can see that about you. I understand if you have high self-belief and low self-worth and what archetype you fall into, and then we discern what your core wound is. And then how you can learn to navigate these things based on your goals. But to speak into the masses, it's hard because I speak to someone who has high self-belief, the same as I speak to someone who has low self-belief, I'm doing more damage than good. It's actually extremely detrimental. And so where can we self-assign, self-identify, do I have high self-worth? Do I have low self-worth? And then is it in alignment with my goals? And we'd like to say, then you have to grow it. You have to get self-accuracy. At the end of the day, you don't have to do anything. But if you have a goal of creating an authentic relationship or feeling more empowered and healed yourself, then it absolutely would serve you to discern whether you have high self-belief, high self-worth, low self-worth, and is it optimal for the life you want to live, or is it hindering you? Is it creating ceilings for you?
Gotcha. How can men develop more self-belief, especially when they feel stuck or like they've lost a sense of identity? How can they develop that a little bit better?
Yeah, for men, it's really, I think for everyone, self-belief is like the ultimate of the pillars for sure. But for men, it's really important to have self-belief because if you have a man out in the world who doesn't believe he's capable, doesn't believe he's competent, doesn't believe that he has or holds any value as an individual, and not to tie himself to others to see that value, that can be a really upsetting and dangerous place to be for a man. And so to build self-belief, to build the identity of someone who is capable, I am capable, I am confident, I am competent, I can create results. And even if I don't know how to do that yet, I am of the mind that I can learn and then implement. It's a simple formula. It doesn't mean it's a simple task to build self-belief, but it's state, prove, and self-assign. Say you're going to do something, prove that you can get it done, and then the really important piece is to self-assign the fact that you did that thing. It's like a moment of self-acknowledgement, self-celebration. I said I was going to do the thing, I did it, and I can self-assign. I said I was going to do it, I did it. And so a really good example is I said I was going to call this person. And how many people, you're a dentist. I avoided a phone call to the dentist for a week. I don't have time. I don't have this. It's like, it takes 3 minutes. Some of us are really bad with phone calls. I don't know what that is. So I said I was going to call the dentist. I proved to myself the other day that I did. It was on my to-do list. I made sure that I wrote it down. And then when I scratched it off, I had my moment of, I did what I said I was going to do. Good for me. Yeah. Yay me. Now I have some of my coaching clients that get really celebratory. They're very external that way. They sing, they dance, they have a little cheer moment. I am a more subtle being. I just have the moment of checking it off the list and I go, nice. I did the thing I said I was going to do. And then I move on to the next thing. So it can be extremely unique to you. I use it for laundry, for example. I use these mundane day-to-day examples for a reason, because if you can do this in your day-to-day life, if you can build self-belief in the things that you're probably already doing or are simple to start implementing, you're going to build a stronger foundation of self-belief rather than just only letting yourself do that for the big things.
You talk about redefining success in alignment with one's values. What does that process look for someone starting over after a divorce?
I think it's all about acceptance after divorce. And I think it's a lot of, again, self-awareness. What is it that you're looking for? What is it that you need? So redefining success, especially after what could feel like a failure. It depends on the circumstance. Everyone who comes out of divorce feels a little different about it. They either feel like a failure or they feel like, you know what, we did the right thing here. This was the right step. But some feel a really great loss. And so it's very unique as well to the individual. But what is the feeling that you have after this? And how can you work on rebuilding that from the inside out? I find with a lot of men who fall into a certain core wound, one that's called defective, it's that very stereotypical, I don't believe I can do things. I feel less than, so I'm going to inflate and act like I'm more and just hope no one finds out. They tie significance to external things. They're very significance driven. So they'll start building from the outside in rather than the inside out. And then all of a sudden they're in this life that doesn't make any sense to them. They have the things they want to have, but they don't actually feel fulfilled and settled in themselves in it. When we build from the inside out, we're actually building from, okay, here's what I want to feel. Here's how I want my days to look based on my core values, based on what I believe in. And here's how I'm going to build that. It's a very different system to build success from the inside out versus the outside in. So self-awareness, again, what kind of life are you looking to create? What kind of narrative are you learning to heal from after divorce? And how can you implement those into something that is going to move you forward in a trajectory that makes sense? But it's you against you always. And so what does that look like? Where are you feeling the most unsettled? Is it internally? Is it externally? How can you start moving the needle towards one of those things? Because they do feed each other. As you start to build one, you'll start to understand the other, and vice versa, if you let it, if you're open to it. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
One of my favorite things to ask, and I'm going to rephrase this one. This is the first time I've asked this question in this way. So you have the self cousins, self-reflection, self-respect. There's what, 10 or 12. And if you put them on a base or a foundation, what does that look like? Which one of the selves goes first, and how do you build from there?
Yeah. I deeply believe it's self-belief.
That's the base?
I do. Yep.
Okay.
If you have self-belief, you believe you can build the other ones. You believe you can grow into the other ones. Self-belief is your ability, like I said, your capacity, your capabilities and things. And people struggle to have any version of success, whether it be in health, wealth, quality of life, or their love lives, without self-belief. And so I do think self-belief is the ultimate foundation to build, because then as you move on, even if you don't understand something, you believe you can understand it and implement it later if you put enough time and effort into it.
And then what's the next one you think? And then I'll stop there. What's the next most important self cousin?
Well, I feel like self-awareness is an all-encompassing word for all of them.
Okay.
So it depends how you look at it. Self-awareness is an all-encompassing term for all of the self. There's, like you said, self-belief, self-worth, self-respect. You could even go in as deep as, am I self-motivated? There's so many there. But I love self-worth, obviously very biased there. Those are my two favorite pillars. But self-respect, I think, is a big one. It's based on your goals. It really is. I really think so. But I love looking when I pair goals with self-respect. That's a magic formula right there. So I do have a bit of a soft spot, a bit of a favoritism towards self-respect right now, because it is a filter that you can learn to run your whole life through. When you have goals and you have self-respect, you have a filter that automatically creates any person, place, thing, idea, belief for or against your goals or self-belief or self-respect. So if you have a goal of fitness, let's say, you want to gain strength, build muscle, increase mobility and longevity. Everything now, every decision, belief, thing you do can run through the filter of, is this for or against the goal? I'm going to go for my walk today. Oh, I don't feel like it. Okay, which one is for my self-respect and which one is for my goal? What's going for the walk? And that's why I love this. It's a deeper layer of personal development, because it's rarely the easy choice. The choice to make for the goal and for your self-respect is rarely the easy choice, but it is the more optimal and aligned one. It's doing the workout instead of not doing it because you don't feel like it. It's having the hard conversation with your intimate partner, even though it's easier to maybe just hold off because it feels more comfortable now. It's going to build into compound into something more later if you don't bring it up now, but it's uncomfortable. But if you're looking at it as which one's going to honor my self-respect, which one's going to honor my goal, it's typically the harder but more optimal choice. And so that's why I love goals so much. If you have a goal to grow your self-worth, if you have a goal to become a really integrous, holistic man, now everything you do is either for that or against that.
That's interesting because I just started, I think I call it my goal book. And I started like a week ago, and I have days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, what needs to be done on that day. And you are so right. And it's so celebratory to cross off. I got it done. Good job. It's almost like I wouldn't have got it done if I didn't write it down. So you are so right on that. How does divorce, you think, impacts sense of identity? Men take a huge hit with identity because they go from us from 2 to 1. And so that identity shift, how can a man, you think, better handle that shift from 2 to 1?
Yeah, I think from 2 to 1 can be detrimental for so many people for so many reasons. I think, again, it's very unique. How did you see the 2 versus the 1? So for the core wound that I said earlier, defective, and a lot of men fall into that category, their attachment style is dependency. So they become dependent on other people for certain things, for how they feel, for how they survive, for how it looks different in anyone. But if you come from a dependency 2 and then fall into 1, it feels really hopeless. It feels like you are not capable. It feels, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? This person was this huge piece of me, and I don't know how to be without this piece. And that, again, is very subjective, even that statement. But you could come from a space of the unlovable core wound, which is mine personally, where we fall into codependency very easily. And that would look different if you're more of a codependent person. And then the unwanted core wound, there's 3 buckets. They fall into the attachment style of hyper independence. So they'll almost feed the narrative of, see, I was right. I am better on my own, actually. So it really depends. It depends on that internal dialogue, that unconscious and subconscious dialogue about what you believe about you and how you're going to feel afterwards. So some people, like I said, will fall into that hyper independence. That's their trauma response. That's their attachment style. They believe that they are the only person that they can trust at the end of the day. And they're going to have that narrative of, see, I went against my better instinct. I partnered up with somebody, and now I'm back to being by myself again. And that was better for me anyways. Or the dependent of, I was so dependent on this person. And again, a lot of this is subconscious and unconscious. It's very rarely for someone to come in and be like, I was so dependent on this person, I don't know how to function without them. It's true, but then maybe that isn't your conscious narrative. And so self-awareness again, how did you feel about the duo? And how do you feel about the single now? And how can you learn to have that healthy attachment style to heal from either dependency, codependency, or independency into what is called an interdependent being? Someone who is interdependent, who can come together with another interdependent person, creates an incredible unity because they themselves know that they are whole and they are valuable and they are bringing something to this partnership, and vice versa. It's a really powerful connection to have 2 interdependent people. And so how can you have the goal of understanding what that was for you? Look them up, look up dependency, look up codependency, look up hyper independence. Which one do you fall in? And then how can you start to move towards the interdependent version of that, the empowered version of that, so that you can go out in the world not feeling like you are necessarily less than because you are not a duo, but also how can you bring this interdependent, empowered person to the next opportunity?
Let's talk about the biggest roadblock for men, forgiveness. That's one of the biggest cuss words for divorced men out there. Let's unpack that. How would you put in self-reflection, self-belief, self-worth. How does that play with forgiveness?
Forgiveness of self or forgiveness of others?
Yes.
Which one do you find they struggle
Oh,
with the most? Is it both?
I think it's more forgiveness of others, more so
Yeah.
than themselves. Yeah.
So I think forgiveness of others comes from the two main core wounds, the defective and the unwanted, because they do project that onto others versus themselves. Whereas the codependent, unlovable is going to need forgiveness of self because we always take it on. How could we have done better? How could we have done more? How can I go get better and be the ultimate martyr and come back into this space even? We would love to do that because we just want to be anyone for anyone else. And so forgiveness, I think it's also what is it rooted in? Do you find there's a lot of shame around
I
people's
do.
forgiveness?
I do that. I couldn't keep my family together. I didn't do enough to keep her. Yeah, things like that. Yes, there's quite a bit of shame.
I think so too. I think discerning, is your forgiveness, whether it be for yourself or for others, is it, I think more for self though, is it rooted in guilt versus shame? Guilt is I did a bad thing. Shame is I am the bad thing. Guilt is I'm
Yeah.
a good person, but I made a poor choice. Shame is I made poor choices because I myself am not a good person. I suck. They're two very different things. Shame's like this deeper root that's
Okay.
tied to self. I think it's easier to forgive others when you learn to forgive yourself. I think it's important to look at, do I feel like I'm trying to forgive someone because I'm projecting blame onto them? There's a lot there. So,
I see it more. There's times like I'll talk about the Carvana tower with all the cars inside the tower, and there's all sort of cars in there, and you only have limited parking space to park cars. So you have the Volvo, you have the Volkswagen, you have the Buick, but you have some old cars, beat up cars, some pieces of crap that you need to get out of the tower. And those are the forgiveness or the people that get on your nerves, whatever. So what I try to do is I try to clear my Carvana tower and just keep the good cars in there, because it's almost like you're giving people parking spaces in your brain that shouldn't be there.
yes, I
Yeah.
love that so much because I actually deeply believe that forgiveness is still, regardless if it's for yourself or others, it's for yourself.
Yes.
Forgiveness, I think people want forgiven and they want to give forgiveness, but there's still a sense of I'm holding on to control over this thing. And I'm holding on to something that doesn't actually serve me, but it's giving me something that's typically something we're holding on to for a negative need
Mhm.
rather than a positive one. And so forgiveness is actually, hey, how can I forgive this person for the sake of me not having to carry that weight anymore?
To move on with my life.
To move on with my life. I've heard this incredible statement once, twice, however many times, where it's if you can't forgive someone, it's like you eating poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yep, exactly.
It's you
Ex-
poisoning yourself. It's festering in you to hold on to this thing. But I also think people think if I forgive this person, then it means that what they did is okay. If I forgive this person, it means they're allowed back in my life in some way. I disagree with that strongly.
Yeah.
If you forgive someone, it is healing a part of you. It's giving you a chance to breathe and have that weight off your shoulders. It doesn't mean you need to let them back in, and it doesn't mean that their behavior was okay and you need to allow that again anymore. I
It's
think
almost like you forgive, don't forget.
forgive, don't forget. And what is the boundary now that needs to be there? Forgive for the sake of your own heart, your own stress, your own weights on your own shoulders. But what boundaries need to be put into place? And boundaries are a really important thing, and that I think go really well with forgiveness because people out here are trying to project boundaries onto others, just like I think they're trying to project forgiveness and things onto others. But in reality, we actually have no control over other people, which I think is a good
Yep.
reminder when it comes to forgiveness. We can only control ourselves. At the end of the day, what we say, think, do, feel, believe, that's it. We have influence over others. Sometimes we have influence over our environment. But as far as what's called your circle of concern, That is the only thing you have control over. So when people try and say, don't do that, don't say that to me anymore, you can't do that to me ever again, this and this, they can, unless you yourself take action and change. So if you and I were in an altercation right now, David, and you started yelling at me and swearing at me, and I said, you can't talk to me that way, knock it off. You still can't. But if I said, David, if you continue to speak to me this way, I am going to leave the room. I'll give you a chance to change your behavior there. I'll give you an option to honor my boundary, but I can't control you. I can only control myself. A true boundary is, hey, if you continue to speak to me this way, I'm going to choose to leave this conversation. You make them aware of your action, but you are in control over you. I think there's something there that blends really beautifully with forgiveness.
There you go. You just talked about boundaries. How can men set better boundaries? I have a friend who had a co-parenting situation years ago, and it was a shit show. So what he finally figured out, that he had to love his kids more than he hated his ex. And that's what got him through the whole co-parenting craziness. So how can men build up or start to have boundaries? Because they have a hard time with that also.
I think you said it right there. It's not about you or your ex. It's about the kids. You're co-parenting for the sake of the kids. You're trying to create a healthy and beautiful environment for them, even though your family dynamic is changing. And the amount of grown adults who cannot put their egos aside for the sake of their children, in my opinion, is very sad and disappointing.
It is. That's so huge. Yeah. They have, so I don't know about your state, but in Colorado, they have a mandatory parenting class that you go to. And it looks like 1956 civil defense, pink kitchen. And basically they tell you don't use the kids as pawns. And you wouldn't be surprised, but so many parents use the kids as pawns. There's the new thing is parental alienation. That's the new thing. Things like that. How can a man gather himself and increase his self-worth during those hard times with co-parenting?
Mm-hmm. So we can categorize people into so many buckets. Are you growth mindset versus fixed mindset? Do you fear success versus failure? There's so many buckets. One of them is, are you more self-conscious? Are you more like thinking everything through the lens of self, or are you more others conscious? Do you think of the lens of others first and then yourself? I don't like to generalize, but just let's say stereotypically, women are better at thinking through others and then self, because we're built and brought up externally, even through our environment, to serve others and be of service to others in our value. You're a good woman if you're a good mom. You're a good woman if you're a good sister, spouse, pack member, community member, those kinds of things. And I do find a lot of men struggle to see from the lens outside of their own view. So that would be an awareness right there. Are you only thinking of yourself, what benefits you, or not thinking of the children? Or maybe you are dealing with an ex-spouse who has that lens where they're only thinking of self and not thinking of the lens of you and your children. When you can see through the lens of your ex and the children and be able to be a leader still for your family, because regardless of how you see it or feel about it, they are still your family. And you can still lead. Someone has to be the leader. Someone has to go first. Someone has to break the petty cycle. Someone has to call out the BS and not participate in it. And what I've seen is once one person breaks the cycle and sticks to it. The key there is consistency and not allowing the lash that's going to come at you as you change the dynamic. Because even if the dynamic's toxic, as it changes, it creates uncertainty in the other person. So you have to be ready for that. And that's where the boundaries are going to come in. Okay, we said we weren't going to speak to each other like this anymore in front of the kids. So I'm going to back away now, and maybe we can come back to this later when the kids aren't here.
Good.
Hold those lines. be the leader, become the person who has the higher self-awareness. So I deeply believe that whoever has the highest standards and whoever has the highest self-awareness becomes the automatic leader in these scenarios. And I also understand that it sucks that it has to be you sometimes. It sucks that it has to be you and the other person isn't willing to do those things or take those steps, but maybe they need your influence there. And regardless, you are never going to have that moment where you walk away and feel like, oh, now I have shame because I played into that. The more you build yourself, regardless of the other person, you can at least walk away from these scenarios knowing that you stayed in integrity, that you built yourself up into a person who was a good example for your children and even
Mm-hmm.
for your ex, who's never probably going to admit it or acknowledge that. But you get to walk away knowing that you didn't succumb to the pettiness, the name calling, the whatever it is that you're getting into. Build yourself into that strong, interdependent, empowered person and lead from there.
Okay. So my men have about a half hour attention span, so we're coming to a close here. But I got a last question, and then we'll talk about what you do and offer, and I'll have links in the show notes. For my men who may feel too old to start over, what would you say to them about the power of consistent small steps?
One, you're never too old. You're never too old to start over. I think the average person shifts their careers and things now between 40 and 50 and build incredible things. Age is wisdom, hopefully. Hopefully, you are bringing wisdom into your age and you are bringing in the wisdom to not allow the things that control us when we're young to control you now. You are in more control cognitively now more than ever. So age is actually this beautiful gift. And so no, you're not too old to start new things. However, every human at any age struggles to start new things. So you have to start small. Consistency is built through humility. How can you have accurate self-awareness of where you can start? So if you've never been to the gym consistently in your life and you say, okay, starting tomorrow, I'm going for 2 hours every day. That is not humble. That's an overswing. You're going to go for 3 days, hate your life, and tell yourself, oh, I suck. Or maybe you're going to blame the gym. It's the gym. The gym sucks. It's not for me. Nope. You just set yourself up for failure right off the bat. If you've never been consistent in fitness, I want you to start from home for 15 minutes a day. And when you start crushing that, then we'll up it. Consistency is about self-belief first. What is it that you believe you're capable of right now? Not that you wish you were capable of, that you believe you're capable of right now, which takes humility. And when you have humility, you can build something in that is sustainable. When you start from a sustainable place, you are going to build such a solid foundation that actually builds into your identity rather than someone who yo-yos all the time. Starts and stops all the time. Sustainability is your key there. But whatever it is that you're doing, it needs to have an adaptability to it. Life is wild. Days are chaotic. There is so much reactivity to life that we can only actually be so proactive. So if you say, hey, I'm going to work out every day, reactivity is going to come in there in some way and you're going to have to make a pivot. You say you're going to do it every day, but you didn't get to the gym because you woke up and the kids were sick, the dog got out of the fence, and now you have no time to go before work. Okay, you still need to do something because you said you would, and keeping the promises you make to yourself is a pillar of self-worth and self-belief, and you're dedicated to building that. And so what is it that you can do now to pivot, to adapt, to give grace to the situation? The check the box version. People who struggle with perfectionism struggle with this step of consistency. But if you struggle with perfectionism, you're always going to give all or nothing, and you are always going to have start-stop cycles. What is the 30% version of your habit? Check the box. It's okay. You can't give it 100% every day. In fact, it's extremely unrealistic. So what is the check the box version? And even if your day has been absolute shit, absolute chaotic, okay, the kids were sick when you woke up, the dog got out of the fence, you've gone to work now, your boss was whatever all day, not great, and you came home, and on the way home, your car broke down. Now it took you an extra hour to get home because, again, reactive, you don't feel like doing anything now physically, but you said you would. So the fifth and final step of consistency is grit. It's that F my feelings moment. I said I was going to do it. I'm going to just check the box, give my 30% version. I'm going to go for a walk around the block a few times. And not only is that going to be good for me, it's going to clear my head, and I'm still honoring the promise I made to myself to move my body for 30 minutes today. I didn't get to the gym. That's okay. But I still moved my body. And guess what? I just honored my goals. I made a right choice for my self-respect. I'm going to build self-belief and self-worth, and I'm building in, through sustainability, the identity of someone who can, even when it's hard, move their body every day. And that is the foundation you're building. And you can do that for any habits. You can do that in relationships. You can do that for wealth goals. Consistency is key through all of it.
I just got the title. Thank you very much, Amy. I appreciate it. Tell the people out there how to find you.
Oh, I am a simple being. It's just at Amy Lenius on Instagram and Facebook. I'm a part of a company called Next Level University, where we deeply believe in the power of consistency and small habits every day that make sense in building to the goals that you have. We're famous for habit tracking. That's what we do. We set people up with habit trackers. We help them reverse and engineer their goals into small, sustainable things that they build every day, while doing the inner work along the way, all the things we talked about today. And so if you have any questions about that, or you're curious at all about what it is that we do, message me anytime. You get me in my DMs on Instagram and Facebook. We deeply believe in human connection now more than ever. And so when you message either Kevin Allen or myself, you don't get an assistant, you don't get AI, you get us, and we would love to chat with you.
Oh, that's cool. Amy, I appreciate it. You did not overswing. You knocked it out of the park. So I appreciate this interview. Hold on the line and don't go anywhere. But thank you very much for showing up.